I'm successfully starting the recording of a fourth video, and I haven't gone insane yet, so it's safe to say that this series is a case of so far so good. I have introduced the thing, I've done an Antics discussion, I've talked about some of the stuff I'm hyped for. So now let's get to the inevitable conversations of these mods are going to be too good and we're going to have to ban them eventually. Yeah, sounds good. How's it going, guys? And welcome back to episode 4 of The Road to Champions, where today we're going to talk about some more megas, some more ZA megas, and in particular, the ones that are probably going to be too good for this metagame. This could be for a variety of reasons. They could be megas given to already fantastic mons, the stat increases might put a little bit over the edge, some of them might be ability dependent, and some of them they could just be too good into the metagame due to their wide variety of options, and the mega just gives it that little push that it needs to get there. There might also be some obvious ones. Who knows? We'll get through it as we go. If you guys have been enjoying the Road to Champions series, please do let me know by leaving a like, subscribing, and let me know what megas you think are probably going to be bannable, and if you agree with my opinions as we go. But I'm not going to go too long of an intro here. You know my style at this point with this week. So let's jump into some megas. We'll start our discussion in terms of banned megas with... Wait, why is this thing here? Why is this thing in my notes? This is obviously going to be banned. The original's banned, so why would the mega be allowed? Oh, who knows. But ban this thing. Next. So we'll actually begin things with Mega Zeraora, which is a mon that I didn't really know what to think of at first. With the fact that all of its stat distributions went into its attack stats as well as a slight speed increase, Mega Zeraora could be quite the problem. Obviously, it still doesn't quite have the coverage for ground types that it would like, although it does have a stronger grass knot now with a base 147 special attack stat. But you look at all the options that it has, as well as being even faster to get off its bulk ups or calm mines as required, and then its phenomenal coverage on all sides, the only thing really missing being ice coverage, and would it really surprise you if they gave this thing Ice Punch? Overall, I think even if it doesn't, and with the high likelihood that in the beginning we're not going to have mons like Lando T in this metagame, I think this thing is going to be too much to overcome, and it would not surprise me if this thing gets banned pretty quickly. You might see it in the first leagues, similar to how we saw stuff like Chien-Pao and Terra Dragonite at the start of Gen 9, but I think this is most likely going to be the first mega that falls victim. Now that the two most obvious are out of the way, let's get into a little bit more of a debatable one, and that is one of the Z megas introduced, where the original was obviously very quickly banned from draft in its inception. So let's talk Mega Lucario Z. Now, the thing with Mega Lucario Z is it is faster than Mega Lucario, but it's more of a special based attacker. But that 151 speed could be quite problematic, especially when you look at how good the Nasty Plot sets are, and you still have access to Vacuum Wave, you have Dark Pulse to be able to deal with the Psychic types, you have Flash Cannon, you have Focus Blast, you have Aura Sphere, you can run Calm Mind if you want to. Like, you still have some physical moves, just in case you do need to get through some ridiculous special walls like a Blissey, but you have Steel Beam if you want to be that guy. Overall, I think this thing is just going to be super duper good, and you combine that speed tier with its strong priority and with Nasty Plot access, and if it gets the Nasty Plot off, there's not going to be a lot of mons that are capable of living its hits, especially since there's going to be a lot of matchups it gets to run Modest. A lot is going to depend on the ability of this thing, because Mega Lucario's problem was it had adaptability. If this thing keeps adaptability, then yeah, this is 100% going to be gone. For example, in the ZA tier, it gets Mind's Eye, which, you know, does help somewhat, but Dark Pulse access does kind of make it a little bit obsolete. It just means you kind of get more move slots and can only need to run stabs. But for the most part, I think this thing is going to be very, very good. We saw how good Mega Lucario was. This thing might be allowable and might be allowed for a while, but I do think in the end, if the ability is too much, it wouldn't surprise me if this thing does fall victim to the ban hammer. This next pick is solely going to depend on what ability it gets. This thing already gets some pretty broken abilities, so it's safe to say that Mega Greninja might be a problem. The one thing that Greninja always lacked was that bit of power, especially for the Battle Bond sets, where it could sometimes struggle to get that first KO to give it the boost that it needed, which was why Terra Greninja was popular. But when you give it an increase of 30 in both attack and special attack stats, as well as an extra 20 speed for good measure, so it outspeeds even more things and can run boosting attack nature more often, yeah, this thing is going to be an absolute behemoth. Obviously, it still has the great coverage that it needs for everything. And as well as also, it can still be your fast spiker, your fast T-spiker, fast taunt. Like, it has the speed for it has the offensive capabilities because you have your dual stab, and then you have poison coverage on both sides. And now you have psychic coverage. You also have access to Nasty Plot and Swords Dance now. Like, this thing is going to be a mess. And I think the only thing that keeps it in the tier is if it doesn't get Battle Bonus ability. Currently in ZAOU it has Protean, which I think it would probably still be banned, because what you could do is you could be in regular form and Protean to get yourself into one type, and then Mega to get stab on something else, which could be a really unique interaction, but I think that would probably be too much. And yeah, Greninja just has everything that it needed. All it needed was that little bit extra firepower, and it's safe to say that the Mega is 100% giving it that. And if it's able to boost its attacks even more, whether that be giving itself stab on some of its coverage, or just giving itself a free +1 in attack, special attack, and speed after getting a kill, which should be a lot easier, this thing might be too much to handle. And while yes, this thing is absolutely sick, nobody wants to just keep a ridiculously good Mon because it looks good. I'm sorry, Mega Greninja, but you might have to go. Those first three, I feel a hell of a lot stronger about than the last two I'm about to present. But I think these last two are interesting conversations that might need to be brought up. So we'll start with a Mon that technically isn't even in the game yet, we just know it exists. And let's make a Garchomp Z. Or Z. I'm gonna say probably balance between the two of them, you've known by now, this is the third time I'm talking about them. The issue that Garchomp has is that its attacking spread of 130, 141 with 151 speed means that this could be an absolute pain to prep for. You combine that with its access to both Swords Dance and Nasty Plot, and while yes, losing its ground typing sucks, it might actually somewhat work out in its favor as it gains a couple of resistances back, most notably to water, isn't as weak to ice, and yes, it does lose out in the secondary stab, but it does mean you still have access to Earthquake for the physical sets, or have access to Fire Blast for the special sets. The two of them in tandem, I think, could be really, really good, because it's one of those where if you prepare for the wrong one and you make your sequences thinking it's one and it's the other, you end up in a really, really bad spot because of just how strong Garchomp is. Like, even with the SD set, for example, if it's SD Scale Shot, then it's probably outspeeding every single Scarfer that you have that you designed to revenge kill this thing. It could be fast sub that it gets right on a sack. It could also just be a really fast hazard setter that can also just click buttons and wear things down because those attacking stats are pretty good. Obviously they're not as good as regular Mega Garchomp, but that's because this thing has like 60 more speed, which we've all wanted fast Garchomp for a while. They didn't quite do it the way we would have wanted, but this is still pretty good. Honestly, I think that versatility might be something that does do Garchomp in. It very much depends on the trend of how fairies are being drafted. I'm not sure how well this thing will be able to deal with a mon like Clefable. Like, maybe you have just about enough bulk with 108-85 to just kind of get through Clef just about, but its lack of access to Flash Cannon could be the one thing that keeps it in this tier. I'm not even joking. And I think it very much will depend on the amount of fairies drafted, and if this thing does get given some sort of horseshit ability, which, you know, it's Game Freak, we can always somewhat rely on them. So this is one of the two interesting conversations, and I think it's one worth having. I know a lot of you might disagree with this, because obviously Garchomp is no longer Dragon Ground, it's not as good into the fairy types, but I think that mixed potential, and knowing that you can bring both, could go very well to the point where it might have a moment similar to Terraback Scourer. It might start off slow, but then just keep gaining traction to the point where it's beyond saving, and therefore it has to go blood. It's pretty simple. This last one pains me to admit, but I think it has to be mentioned. because it might be too good. And that's Mega Starmie. The thing with Mega Starmie is we actually know its ability, unlike the rest of these. We know it's going to be some form of pure power or huge power because of the fact that it had an extra 40 points invested into its attack stat in Legends EA. Therefore, that was done very similarly to how Mega Mawile was handled because that game doesn't have any abilities. Therefore, it's pretty good to assume that it's going to have pure power. And you combine that with all of the physical moves that it got access to in ZA, which I'm also not going to talk about in the buffs video, similar to what I said about Miastic yesterday. This thing got access to Bulk Up, this thing got access to Aqua Jet, this thing got Liquidation. This thing still has access to Flip Turn, it has Zen Headbutt, it is Triple Axle. And you realize that this thing is just going to be a problem because it has all of the physical moves that it could possibly need. It has Rapid Spin still to be able to boost its speed, it can run Bulk Up Recover sets, and at the same time, its special attack stat is still pretty usable at base 130. Meaning, if you think there's going to be a physical wall that's a problem, you can still snipe that. For example, snipe Skarmory with a Thunderbolt. That should be pretty alright. Pecharunt, if that exists in this game, you can just Psychic and kill that thing. And the list just goes on and on. You combine that with the fact that Starmie does have 120 speed, and can be a Rapid Spinner to be able to outspeed all the Scarfers, and its Aqua Jet is still going to be pretty damn strong, especially if you do get a Bulk Up, which I'd say will happen on a few occasions, because Bulk Up sets seem like they'll be quite good to get around some of the Dark types. Because at the end of the day, its bulk isn't that bad. 60 HP and then 105 in both defenses, with access to Bulk Up, Calm Mind, and Recover, and this thing could be an absolute pain in the hole. I think this thing will be better than Garchomp and might go quicker than Garchomp, but this one just kind of pains me because this thing could be really, really fun to have around. But I think the issue is just that extra 20 speed compared to Medicham, that even better mix capability in comparison to Medicham and Mawile, that it should just be easier to snipe off any of its checks. And I think it's just a harder mod to check in general, because Mawile can lose to a lot of Steel types, and Medicham can lose to a lot of the bulky Psychics. Whereas with this thing, you don't really know what checks it. And that sucks. And at the end of the day, this thing has basically everything that it could want, which is just going to make it a problem. And you better enjoy it whilst it's there initially, because I don't think it's going to last very long. It sucks, but sometimes there's nothing you can do. And that's 5 megas that I think might get banned over the course of the Champions metagame. Some of them I feel a lot stronger than others, but it wouldn't surprise me if every single one of them go as the metagame develops. Obviously, some of these might be hot takes, but this wouldn't be the first time that I share some hot takes on this channel, and it certainly won't be the last. If you guys have enjoyed that little breakdown of some ZA megas that I think might be too good, let me know in the good old YouTube ways, as well as let me know if you think there's any mega that I should have discussed here. Obviously, I am open to any sort of discussion, especially as the hype cycle edges ever so closer. We're only a few days away now from Pokemon Day, so maybe we'll have this in our hands sooner rather than later. Would be pretty good. Anyways, I shall see you tomorrow, where I'll be talking about some mons that I think are going to get better in a metagame without Terra. Peace!